Hi folks, welcome to your Gersnet European Special UEFA Europa League Group Stage first round of matches. Rangers versus Real Betis, Ballon Pied, 8pm kick-off at Ibrox tonight. Still tickets available, so get yourself along to the ticket office at Ibrox this afternoon and get yourself one if you don't have one already, or watch it on TNT Channel 3, I think it will be, because I think TNT 1 showing the Brighton game. Despite all the money they've got, despite the size of the league they're in, Brighton, this is a massive night of celebration for them, their first ever game in Europe, so why should we be turning our nose up a European tie at Ibrox? And I think TNT 2 is the West Ham game. West Ham are the Conference League holders, West Ham European trophy holders. I'm losing the impetus here. Preview pod coming to you in association with Forest Precision Engineering. My name's Alec Anderson and I want to talk to you about the number 22. First off, I want to talk to you about the number 22. Isco, the Spanish international, he wears the squad number 22 for Real Betis. Is he going to be the most famous player on the park for them tonight? You know, there's got quite a bit of competition in that squad, as I'm going to come on and explain. But yeah, just the 5 Champions League winners medals Isco's got with his from his time at Real Madrid, but he only played in 4 of those finals, and he usually come on as a sub or went off early in the second half, so nothing to worry about there. £22 million sterling, £22 million. That was the world record transfer fee at the time in the late 90s when Real Betis brought themselves to the attention of the world's football fans by paying that for the comparative flop Denilson, the Brazilian forward, although he ended up staying there for quite a few years. Denilson, they scored quite a few goals. He's a bit like their Tor Andre Flo. And Tor Andre Flo, I remember him scoring twice against Real Betis in the Benito Villamarín for Chelsea, when Chelsea put them out in the quarterfinals of the Cup Winners' Cup, which they won in the 97-98 season, I think that was. Anyway, 22-0. 22-0 is a record score in the famous Seville derby. Real Betis, the other half of that derby with Sevilla. And it was back in 19 Canteen. It's in Phil Ball's book Morbo, the When Saturday Comes publication. Morbo, you should read that. It's a great study, English language study of the Spanish club scene, and especially it's got a great chapter on the Seville derby. But one of them, I don't know, I can't remember correctly, sorry Phil, it was something to do with maybe the time of the First World War. It was something to do with maybe military service, but Real Betis had a few of their first team players were kind of held captive, basically kept in a compound that weren't going to be released in time for this game, and as a protest, they thought Sevilla was behind this. As a protest, they just fielded their youth squad, Real Betis, and Sevilla reciprocated by doing the gentlemanly thing and putting out their first team, beating Real Betis youth team 22-0 in what nevertheless counted as a first class match, and Sevilla fans have been taunting Real Betis with this scoreline ever since. And 2022, the year 2022, Rangers are in Seville in the Sanchez Pizjuan in Sevilla's stadium, losing the final of this very competition on penalties. And a month earlier in the same city at La Cartuja, the other stadium in Seville, the third stadium in Seville, where Celtic lost the 2003 UEFA Cup final to Porto, Real Betis are winning the Copa del Rey on penalties against Valencia, only their 3rd Spanish Cup and only the 4th major honour of their entire history. Real Betis won La Liga in 1935, the year before the Spanish Civil War broke out. In Sevilla, they've only been champions of Spain once as well. They won the La Liga in 1946, the year after the end of the Second World War, although Spain didn't have anything to do with the Second World War. Yes, they did. So yeah, I think Derek from the Rangers Review announced, said in one of his videos this week that everybody should watch the Copa 90 documentary on YouTube, and he's quite right. The Copa 90 documentary, it's part of their once-in-a-lifetime series. They Say We're Crazy is the title of this one, which kind of sums up the kind of patronising tone of the whole video. Football fans are mad, aren't they? It's a whole lot of guys who are really keen to get a job at the Guardian or the Times or something like that. Oh my god, yeah, let's make sure you talk to whack jobs or whatever. And it's not true. It's actually a really interesting video, and if nothing else, it gives you a real idea of how Real Betis fans see themselves. It focuses on Betis, their history, and there's very much a kind of something between the Tartan Army, Hibs, whether it will be persisted nonsense about winning the Scottish Cup, and a bit Celtic as well. Now, we all know, I think most people know about Real Betis, they have the strip, the green and white stripes, it's the original Celtic strip, but Celtic only changed to the hoops the kind of early part of the 21st century, and although they had changed to hoops by the time Real Betis came into being, and that's kind of an amalgamation with another club around about 1907 to 1909. I think it's later than that before they actually become known as Real Betis Ballon Pied, which is not royal they've got the royal seal of approval, something Celtic would never have wanted. But they go with, there's a student, a guy who was a student in Scotland at the time, someone from Seville, when he come back, and he wanted to use the Celtic's previous strip with the stripes. That was the strip they were going to use, and that's why they wear green and white stripes. Betis, I hope they're wearing it tonight, to be honest with you. I don't want to see them wearing it. They've got a really class black, kind of mostly black away kit. I feel they might wear it with the black shorts tonight, the green and white stripes, or Rangers are going to go with the all blue. Anyway, I want to see them wearing that kit, because apart from anything else, it'd be a lovely tribute to. I hope we're going to do a tribute to the late great Rory McKinnon tonight. His last match for Rangers was against an Iberian Peninsula side in a Celtic related kit. It was against Sporting of Lisbon, and I hope that Michael Beale, this isn't his first game against in the group stages of the Europa League with Rangers was. At Ibrox was against Rapid Vienna, another famous club with green and white stripes, and I hope his last one isn't again against this mob tonight, because if things go bad in the League Cup or either of these two league games, he might not see the next Europa League game, our Michael. But yeah, watch that video and it gives you a great idea of how the Betis fans regard themselves. And there's a really interesting thing about them back in the 1930s when Franco, after the Civil War, he wanted to really kind of put down the famously separatist regions of Catalonia and the Basque region. How he did that was by giving them industry, by getting car factories and that put in there. The idea being, because he was such a psychopath, Franco, an actual fascist, he thought that the civilization, that money would bring civilization, and that would make them start speaking Castilian Spanish as opposed to the Basque and Catalonian language. And of course it didn't, but what it meant was that Andalusia, where Spanish football was born, Recreativo Huelva, the first team in Spain, they had left in comparative poverty compared to the north of the country. So apparently up to like 25% of Andalusia moved up to the north, moved up to Catalonia and the Basque region. So there's this massive diaspora up there apparently of fathers and grandfathers, and that was passed down father to son, that you would still be a Betis fan. Obviously Sevilla as well, but that's not dealt with in this documentary for obvious reasons. And that was quite interesting. So for that reason, Real Betis fans regard themselves as the fourth best supported team in Spain. I wouldn't say the fourth biggest, because obviously you've got Real Madrid, Barcelona and Atletico Madrid, and then I think Athletic Bilbao and Valencia in terms of trophies and that are way ahead of Real Betis. Most people are way ahead of Real Betis. They've won less major domestic trophies than we have played in European finals. That's quite an amazing thing tonight when you think about the fact that some of us are quite in awe of a La Liga side coming to Ibrox expecting to take a scalping. In European terms, we're so way ahead of Betis. This is only their 13th season in European competition. We've been in the Champions League group stages, I think 11 times so far in our history. We've been playing in European competition since the mid-50s. So there's no comparison. We're so much further ahead of them in terms of European history. But yeah, I think the Betis fans, there's a famous thing, they always had a bit of a kind of atmosphere of not taking the football too seriously. It's dealt with in Morbo, which came out like 20 odd years ago, before the start of Sevilla's run of winning the UEFA Cup / Europa League 7 times. Now, can you imagine what it's going to be like for your derby rivals have won European trophy 7 times? Only this third club, only Real Madrid and Milan, they're the only other 2 clubs to have won any European trophy on 7 occasions. And the haunting thing, the terrible thing for Real Betis is that in 2013-14, in the last 16 of this competition, the Europa League, with Sevilla already having 2 UEFA Cups to their name, they played Sevilla, they met Sevilla in the last 16 of the Europa League. And the first leg was at the Sanchez Pizjuan, that shithole that our fans were basically tortured in by the Spanish authorities in 2022 in that final against Eintracht. Real Betis went there and they won the first leg at the Sanchez Pizjuan 2-0. Their second goal was scored by a guy called Sevilla. His name was Sevilla, same spelling, Sevilla. And he also scored his penalty in the shootout after they lost the second leg at home 2-0. But Sevilla won that penalty shootout and they went on to not just win that season's Europa League, but it was the first of 3 in a row. Remember, Sevilla won 3 Europa Leagues on the trot in 14, 15 and 16 and became only the 4th club after Bayern, Ajax and Real Madrid to win any European trophy 3 seasons in the trot. So that must haunt Real Betis fans, and I wonder, and through my experience with Celtic, with their original Real Betis kits, if it's just a case of this whole thing about we don't care about winning. They've got this, I'm really going to muck it up now. They've got this phrase, a kind of motto. It's Er Betis, Viva Er Betis, as opposed to El Betis because of the Andalusian pronunciation. Manque perdista. Anyway, I'm not going to try it. It's basically, we love you, Betis, even though we know you're going to lose. And I think that's maybe grown arms and legs when your local rival has won 7 Europa Leagues and you've only won 4 domestic trophies in your entire history. They're making a kind of, a glory. It's actually better. Whatever you're doing, even if that means losing, winning nothing, somehow that becomes the best thing you can possibly do. Now, Rangers fans, we don't get that. We do that thing where we lost the Europa League final. Aye, we are losers. That's not good enough. We're almost kind of eschewing European football this season. We don't want any to do it because we want to concentrate and win our own league so we can slag Celtic, who, when we won the treble in 2003, they said losing a European final was the only thing that counted that season. When we lose a European final in the very same city by an even closer margin in 2022 and win the Scottish Cup, no, you're losers. And I feel sometimes we take that kind of stuff on board. So I'm a bit suspicious of the Betis fans. We don't care about losing, but they're definitely one of the biggest clubs in Spain. Their stadium, the Benito Villamarín, it's much redeveloped since Dave Nery scored for Scotland against Brazil in the 1982 World Cup finals, and I don't know how that game ended up. It's been rebuilt in stages over the years, and it holds, I worked out, 112 seats less than Parkhead. It's got 112 seats less than Parkhead. 60,000 this place holds. So they're a massive club, Betis, with an awful history. And Manuel Pellegrini is the man who has turned them round. He's getting them, they're on the cusp of the Champions League. They nearly made the Champions League in 2022, but they won that Spanish Cup, and that kept them more than happy. And their goal is to get into the Champions League group stages. They've been going out in the last 16 of this competition in the last 2 seasons. Last season they went out to Manchester United, as Michael Beale is too keen for my liking to tell us, too keen to talk up the opposition like he's getting his excuses in early, Mr. Beale. They went out narrowly to Manchester United last season. Manchester United scalped them in the end up, I think, 4-1 in Old Trafford, Betis in the last 16 last season. But this was after Betis had won a group involving Roma, who then went on to lose the final of last season's Europa League to Sevilla. The season before that, they get put out by Eintracht Frankfurt, who we then met in the final. And I think they lost the home game by a single, maybe lost 2-1 in Seville, and they went over to Frankfurt and they were winning 1-0 Betis. They were winning 1-0 and it went into extra time because that was the season the away goal rule had stopped, and it was only an extra time equaliser by Eintracht Frankfurt that put out Real Betis. So the ties between Rangers and Seville, the city of Seville, the city of Glasgow, really quite tight. But no, we could have ended up beating them that competition that season quite easily. Betis would have think they could have ended up winning their first European trophy at Sevilla's home ground, as Eintracht ended up doing that season. The only time Sevilla ever played in the European Cup Winners' Cup, their only European Cup Winners' Cup tie was Rangers' very first tie in Europe against Spanish opposition. We beat them 4-0 at Ibrox. Sevilla lost 2-0 in the Sanchez Pizjuan. I was at the game, you probably yourself, the Champions League group stages 2009-2010. Sevilla pumped us 4-1 at Ibrox. And I was at the 2007 UEFA Cup final, and it was staged at Hampden when Sevilla beat Espanyol. Following season, I'm at Manchester watching Rangers in the UEFA Cup final. So Rangers have played in Seville in all of the 3 original European competitions. Sevilla have played in Glasgow in all of the 3 original European competitions. I'm excluding the Conference League just now, which is a 4th European competition. And here we've got Real Betis wearing a Celtic kit, turning up for the Ibrox at the first time. The last season, earlier on this season, it was Servette. I'm not really interested because no Swiss team has ever got to a European final. PSV Eindhoven, I'm sick of seeing them. This is the 5th time they've played Rangers at Ibrox in European competition. I'd seen 4 times now. I've seen PSV Eindhoven at Ibrox. Real Betis, one of those clubs that you would think had played in a European final. I think because of the familiarity we now have through watching Spanish football on television, even Spanish domestic football so regularly. But they're a famous name, no doubt about it, and you maybe think it's like Spartak Moscow or Besiktas or Lyon, one of these clubs you assume has played in a European final somewhere along the line. but they haven't. And yeah, it's a team. I like to tick off European finalists, but this is what one of the clubs I'm really dying to see. I'm really looking forward to seeing them at Ibrox tonight. What a team! What a team they've got. It's the manager Manuel Pellegrini. We come up against him. I was at the home and away game against Villarreal in the knockout stages of the Champions League last 16. I think it was the Champions League back in 2005, 2006. Only time Rangers have got out the group in the Champions League. That was one of the most exciting ties of my entire life. Absolute epic. Pellegrini subsequently went to Real Madrid, beating Rangers was enough to get him the Real Madrid job. They got to the semi-finals. Villarreal, the Champions League that season. Arsenal put them out. But he's also been manager of plenty of teams in Chile, and he's been manager of. He's won the Argentinian league with San Lorenzo, the Pope's favourite team, and this is a guy who also managed Universidad de Católica. So let's get the atmosphere going tonight. And River Plate, I think he won the Argentinian title with River Plate. Manchester City manager, maybe most famously winning the league in 2014, won a couple of League Cups with Manchester City as well. Turned 70 on Saturday, and Barcelona helped the ex-Real Madrid manager celebrate that by almost beating them 7-0 in Barcelona in La Liga. 5-0 they went down on Saturday in Barcelona in the Olympic Stadium. A bad way for Pellegrini to celebrate his 70th birthday, but he's a class act, Pellegrini, the old Chilean, and he'll have them up for it tonight. A lot of talk about him, almost not interested in the away games in the Europa League group stage. He's going to focus on the home games, and that's just bad patter. I wouldn't believe that for a second. His team is something else. They've got a problem in nets. Rui Silva, the fellow, the Portuguese international, he come off at half time against Barcelona on Saturday. They're looking at getting in Claudio Bravo. He's fight for fitness. Just the two Copa Americas, Claudio Bravo, just 145, 150 odd caps for Chile and goals. But he's 40 years old, maybe he's struggling, ex-Man City, what have you. Everybody knows Claudio Bravo. If he doesn't make it, they're going to put in the third choice goalkeeper, their youth goalkeeper, but we're not going to read too much into that. They've got Hector Bellerin of Arsenal at right back, ex of Arsenal, should I say, in a decade, winning about 25 FA Cups with the Arsenal, Hector Bellerin, and he's now a very much the overlapping fullback, very much a wing back with Real Betis. On the left hand side, they've got the homegrown boy, Betty through and through, Juan Miranda, who scored the winning penalty for them in that Copa del Rey final against Valencia. If he's not there, it'll be Abner, the young Brazilian. And I don't even want to talk about this. They've got German Pizea as a centre half. It's an Argentinian international called German, and Argentina and Germany are the two countries that have met most in the World Cup final. 3 times they have met, and he played in the World Cup final, just before Christmas there. He came on as a sub to help Argentina beat France in the World Cup final. I think he played 2 or 3 games in that tournament, coming on as a sub in the quarter final as well. He knows what he's doing. He's got a World Cup winners medal, as does his teammate Guido Rodriguez, who I think only played 1 game as a sub in that World Cup for Argentina there. But, a World Cup winner, he gets the medal as a member of the squad. He's a bit ferocious in defensive midfield as much as playing in defence at centre half, perhaps. In that World Cup, these guys would come up against Andres Guardado of Mexico. Just the 179 caps for Mexico, an absolute legend of the game, in his late 30s now. A midfield tiger, though, captained his club against Argentina in the group stage of the World Cup in Qatar. A game that Mexico lost quite crucially, helped Argentina on their way, but absolutely immense in the middle of the park. He might only come on, second half or something like that, as he did in the game I watched. I watched Real Betis playing Rayo Vallecano. I watched the whole game, Rayo Vallecano, in a La Liga match, and this is the stuff I do for you guys. I will sit on the couch and I will watch a whole football match. Don't send money to Gersnet, send it to me, send it to Alec Anderson. It was an awful game, absolutely terrible. First half was absolutely honking. Betis stepped up a bit in the second half, made a few substitutions, bringing on Guardado, club captain, and that made a difference. They started playing a bit. Isco, nominally a left-sided midfielder, but he's kind of sitting as a 10 sometimes. They were playing a 4-2-3-1 in that game to start. I think that's their favoured formation. They've got Rodri on one wing, young Spanish guy. He's a flying machine. They've got Roca of Leeds, who's a bit of a, he likes to get ripped in as well. I think he's on loan for Leeds United. He's Spanish, isn't he, Roca? Anyway, watch it for him. He's a cracking player. Up front, they've got, or kind of on the left-hand side of the 3, they've got, on the right-hand side, Jose Perez for Newcastle, Leicester. I think he's just signed permanently with them this season, already banging the goals in for them. He's a flying machine, absolutely brilliant. And you've got Abdi, the Moroccan, the young Moroccan guy. He played a couple of times, sub and what have you, for Morocco in their run to the semi-finals of the last World Cup. So yeah, he's rubbish really compared to everybody else. They've got Willian Jose, the Brazilian. He's been scoring a few goals from it already this season. He scored the only goal of the game from a free kick. Well, the keeper was terrible in that game against Vallecano, who had lost 7-0. Right, Vallecano had lost 7-0 in their previous match, so they were really getting out to set in defensively and make sure they didn't get overrun again. They had a lot to prove, but yeah, it was a woeful game. Especially the first half was absolutely awful, but it's a different level. Vallecano are probably harder than most things we would ever meet in Scotland, even though they're a lowly team in La Liga. So you've got to bear that in mind. And I think I've heard that Betis like to hit on the break. Their style is mostly hitting on the break, especially away from home. Obviously, so we need to watch ourselves. But William Jose, he's a big kind of a big silky Brazilian. He's definitely got a cracking touch. There's Iglesias, who's also a Spanish international, kind of getting towards it. He's like 30 odd years old. He's not on fire this season apparently, but he's withdrawn his services from Spanish international football until they sort out this row with Rubiales, his ex-Hamilton Accies player. Doesn't it make you proud who thinks it's okay as president of the Spanish FA to sexually assault women in public? So big Iglesias, fair play to him. He come away from Spanish international football and protest against that. They've got a guy called William Carvalho who's fighting for his fitness just now. He just won the European Championships, been part of the team that beat France in the final. No Scotland fans, not talking about celebrating getting to the finals. The actual final, Euro 2016, when Portugal beat France in the Stade de France in the final. William Carvalho is a kind of defensive midfielder, central defensive unit, absolutely cracking player, massively experienced. He also played in the very first Nations League final when Portugal beat the Dutch in Porto. So these guys are of a good level. He's trying to fight for fitness. He's trying to get back into the team. He's not been available so far. I don't know if he'll make an appearance tonight. Same thing applies to Nabil Fekir, World Cup winner with France in 2018. But he only came on as a sub when the game was done, so it doesn't really count. He's a cracking player as well, and he's been struggling to get into the Betis team. But they've got such strength and depth. It would give you palpitations if you thought about it like that. But it's European football, guys. I love this stuff. I think it's what Michael Beale needs as well, or maybe it's the thing that's going to finish him. Taking the temperature of the Rangers support at large, it seems he's getting a bit of a free pass for this one. I feel as if a lot of Rangers fans are kind of thinking, we're not expected to win this, we're up against it. I feel it's exactly what he needs, is being offered. If that's fine, if he's getting a free hit, then that's absolutely fine. He should go for it and take that. And I feel as if we were quite kind to the team. We drew 2-2 at home with PSV Eindhoven. We realised we're up against a good team, but we saw just exactly how good last night when they took a tanking off Arsenal. We just enjoyed the fact that Rangers had gone toe-to-toe with a good team and drawn at Ibrox. So maybe it's going to be the same thing tonight. Maybe a draw is going to be perfectly respectable, even a loss if we play well. But I'm not so sure. I think he really needs this, Michael Beale. Rabbi Matondo did really well in his press conference. I think he did say irregardless. I think he did. Maybe he just said regardless and made a wee sound before it, but it sounded like he said irregardless. Total no for me, but he came across brilliant, didn't he, Rabbi Matondo? And it's great to see him getting back to what we hoped he would be when we first signed him and shoving it down my throat. I thought after I saw him in that friendly against Hamburg a month ago that it was done. It was all over, but no, he's been absolutely brilliant. I want to see him start tonight. I want to see him start on the left. I want to see Abdallah Sima on the right hand side, and then it's dependent on what formation Michael Beale is going to play. Mark Benstead of Sky Sports yesterday, I was watching live. As he said, two injuries confirmed by Michael Beale at his press conference today, and I thought, that's Todd Cantwell's out and he's confirming that Danilo's not going to be back in, big deal, and he tells you it's actually Raskin that isn't playing, so that's a massive blow, but it maybe kind of throws a different light on this criticism of Beale that he was only buying midfielders and strikers during the summer. It's maybe shown his summer signing policy in a more advantageous light, so he's got plenty of backup in midfield. I have a funny feeling that the game at Perth was a formational practice for tonight. I think he's maybe going to go 4-2-3-1. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just guessing here. If he does, you're looking at Ryan Jack coming in to replace Raskin, perhaps alongside Lundstrom. I would go for Suter. Never mind this stuff with Ben Davis and this kind of bogus statistic. I think Craig Ray was talking about it. Craig was talking about it on the Sunday night pod just past. For me, it's Suter and Golson who should be playing at centre half. Never mind this thing with Davis and the statistic about league games unbeaten. with Davis and Goldson. Borna got to be at left back, Tav's got to be at right back, and if you've got anyone, you get on Tav scoring the first goal. His record in Europe scoring the first goal, especially at Ibrox, is absolutely stunning. We've played 4 European games so far this season. Betis are straight into the Europa League group stages because of the Spanish coefficient, so this is their first European game. Maybe we've got that on them. But Tav scored 3. Tav scored in 3 of those 4 games we've played in Europe this season, so his record's absolutely phenomenal if you look at it. Obviously, it's going to be Jack Butland in goals. If it's the 2, I think that system we played on Saturday at Perth, it was like the sitting 2 in midfield with a sprung trap. It was like they were the spring in a sprung trap. They're supposed to come forward. So Cifuentes might go in there and sit beside Lundstrom. It wouldn't surprise me, even though that's not Cifuentes' position. Hey, he speaks Spanish. You'll know what the Betis players are saying to each other. That's an advantage. But if he's got this thing where he might want the 2 to come out and just get a hold of the ball and push it forward really quickly, he might go against Jack. If that's the case, I think Lundstrom's a certainty to play now because he can go forward and also sit in central defence if the situation requires it. If it's a 4-3-3, I think Tom Lawrence is out the picture. If it's a 4-2-3-1, I think it's going to be Cifuentes and Lundstrom, and I would have Lawrence sitting behind whoever it is. And for me, I want the pace going down the wings, not just for Rangers in attack, but to keep a check on the likes of Hector Bellerin, keep a check on their wing backs. They're fast down the wings. Real Betis in the middle, though, I think Dessers was being rested on Saturday. I don't think he was dropped. I think he's going to start tonight, and I'm not totally against that because I think he's a lot better than we realise, and he's had this problem, his fitness from the end of last season in Italy. He's now had an international break to augment the runabout he was getting playing so many games at the beginning of the season. I think he'd come out tonight if he's got his fitness up to speed. There's a lot of good signs with Dessers. I think he's a cracking player. There's a cracking player in there potentially. I wouldn't be totally against him playing if it wasn't for the fact that might mean that Roofe was dropped. Maybe Seema's not going to play and it's going to be Roofe and Dessers, and I'd be fairly happy with that, but I would rather see Roofe starting tonight, if I'm honest, whether that's with Lawrence behind him, because we're playing 4-2-3-1, or whether Cifuentes is going to add himself to Jack and Lundstrom, and Cifuentes is going to be playing more of his natural game, bombing forward. But we definitely need this, guys. I think it's a massive game, and I just love the fact that it's such a glamour game as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing Real Betis, and I hope we can add to the fact that they've never got past quarterfinals in Europe. We can add to their terrible record in most things, because quite frankly, we've got a terrible enough record already this season. We need to be thinking about ourselves. But I'll come out after the game at Ibrox and do a bit of post-match reaction for you, and hopefully we're talking about a really famous Rangers win.